Hello, my name is Renee Price, and I am the founding director of the Neue Galerie New York Museum for Austrian and German Art. It is my pleasure to welcome you to a tour of a special exhibition, Paula Modersohn-Becker, Ich bin ich, I am me. This extraordinary show features major loans from private and public collections around the world and has been prepared in conjunction with the Paula Modersohn-Becker Foundation and the Paula Modersohn-Becker Museum in Bremen, Germany. So who was this courageous young artist? She is a major figure, in fact, a precursor in the history of German Expressionism. Yet despite her importance, her work has never been the subject of a museum retrospective in the United States. She died tragically at the age of 31, soon after giving birth to her daughter. In the course of her brief career, she created more than 700 paintings and over 1,400 drawings. Modersohn-Becker is acclaimed for the many self-portraits she produced, including the first nude, pregnant self-portraits known to have been made by a woman. She also explored the theme of motherhood in a number of very moving paintings and drawings. These components add up to a fascinating portrait of a woman who was always ahead of her time. We hope you will enjoy this special tour of Paula Modersohn-Becker, Ich bin ich, I am me.
I was always very keen to establish Paula Modersohn-Becker's place in the canons of art history because I think she richly deserves it. And I was very taken with my co-curator, Jay Clark, by the idea of identity in Modersohn-Becker's work. So we go with her on a kind of journey towards finding herself as an artist, finding herself as a woman, and finding herself as a human being. Paula Modersohn-Becker is born in 1876 into a well-to-do, liberal, cultured family in Germany, and her working career is a very short one. She trains in the 1890s, and really her mature work dates from about 1904, 1905 to 1907. Because tragically, in November 1907, when she gave birth to her daughter, she died 10 days later of an embolism. So she's 31 years old when she dies. She achieved in that short period, I think, as much as many artists achieve in a lifetime's work. And she's as original and cutting edge as any of the male artists of her generation. One of the very original aspects of this exhibition is that we've highlighted Modersohn-Becker's early drawings. They show how incredibly skilled she was, and that everything she did after that in her attempts to become a modern avant-garde artist were very deliberate, because she could draw almost like Cranach or Dürer if she wanted to. I particularly like this pairing of the man and the woman. When you look at the man, you can see how she's coming out of her training. But when we turn and look at the woman, she feels for this woman and expresses that feeling in the way that she makes the drawing. Around 1900, Modersohn-Becker began to paint the local people in the artist colony of Worpstede, where she'd settled. She takes as her models almost exclusively women and children and babies. She was obviously very fascinated by the silver birch forests surrounding the village, and she knits her figures into this silver birch landscape. Modersohn-Becker often painted very small works. She wrote in her diaries that she thought that intimacy was the soul of all great art. She liked the idea of working sometimes with a fragment of what we might think of as a whole composition. But I think she also wanted the challenge of making something small, nevertheless, emanate a kind of strength and presence. And finally, she took this principle of the intimate and the grand into her self-portraiture. Women artists faced very difficult and particular challenges in this era. But the other challenge Modersohn-Becker faced was financial dependence on her husband. I think one of the attractions of Otto Modersohn was that he was a successful artist, and this gave her the freedom to keep her own studio, to work, not to have to teach. When she left Otto, she had no money of her own. And what makes her go back to Otto in the autumn of 1906 is because she simply can't see how she can forge her own independence financially. This is the painting by Paula Modersohn-Becker that's thought to be the first painting by a woman artist that represents herself as both nude and pregnant, although it is an imaginary pregnancy at this point. This is painted in May 1906, after she's left her husband and she's arrived in Paris. It is an extraordinarily public statement of a private, intimate sense of herself. She really wants a child. We know this from the correspondence. It's something that is preoccupying her. But I think it's also the idea that women have this extraordinary, unique, dual creativity. We can both be mothers and we can be creative artists. And it's a symbol of that, rather than a self-portrait of how she is at that particular moment in time. During this last year of her life, 1906 to 1907, Paula Modersohn-Becker breaks through boundaries. And part of that is to do with artistic genre. And obviously, there is a feeling of Cézanne in her tabletop still life paintings. But they're also, I think, very connected to her figure paintings of the period. When we look at the mothers and babies, we look at the self-portraits, we look at her paintings of children, they're all holding these symbols of fertility. Everything is kind of bursting open and spilling over the tabletop. You get this feeling of the extraordinary abundance and fertility of nature. And I think that's the theme that is running through what became, tragically, her late work, this theme of the potential creativity of everything. This is a very special painting for the show because it really was the catalyst. It's a painting that was acquired as a joint acquisition by MoMA and the Neue Galerie, the first Paula Modersohn-Becker in both collections. It is the last important self-portrait by Modersohn-Becker. And whereas her self-portrait on her 6th anniversary shows her with imaginary pregnancy, now she really is pregnant. She rests one of her hands on her stomach and she holds up 2 flowers because they're symbols both of her artistic creativity and her creativity as a mother. This is an incredibly triumphal painting. I think she feels herself very much at the fulfillment of what she desired for her life. So tragic as her passing is at such an early age, you feel, I think, when you take our exhibition as a whole, that she achieved what she wanted to achieve. And that's a very, I think, moving and satisfactory ending to the show.
I am deeply grateful to the lenders of this exhibition, and I want to thank the staff and the trustees of the Neue Galerie for making this all possible. Jill Lloyd is the curator of the presentation of this show at the Neue Galerie, and J.A. Clark is overseeing the presentation at the Art Institute of Chicago, where the exhibition travels in October. Peter de Kimpe from Amsterdam served as the installation designer, and Judith Hudson as the catalog designer. Paula Modersohn-Becker is supported by the President's Circle of the Museum, our highest level giving group. As always, we are most grateful to Neue Galerie President and co-founder Ronald S. Lauder for his long-standing and generous support of this museum. And now I bid you a fond farewell. Auf Wiedersehen.